Well, we've got less than 45 minutes before we hear from the President, and to discuss the way forward, I'm joined by Judith February. She's a Senior Research Associate and Governance Specialist at the Institute for Security Studies. Judith, I know that you've managed to sort out your mute button now. I want to ask you about how the President is doing. You know, he's had a difficult task. He had a huge amount of support in the beginning, but now there's lots of criticism that he's failing to act, especially against ministers and MECs who are not doing what they should, and he's too much of a nice guy to take any big decisions. What's your view?
Well, Sally, good evening. Yes, I've now unmuted myself. I think from at the start, if we go back, at the start of this lockdown, everybody was in it together. There was solidarity, and the President showed real leadership as he stepped up to the plate, and suddenly another world seemed possible. But of course, President Ramaphosa is one person, and he heads up a cabinet, which is a cabinet of a sort of mixed bag. So some of his colleagues are diligent, and I think we have to applaud the Minister of Health, Zweli Mkhize, for the sterling work that he's been doing. He's been indefatigable, and he really has taken this upon himself and gone out across the country and so on and done really well. However, the President is also surrounded by underperformers and misfits. So we had the Minister of Communications, Stella Ndabeni-Abrams, who deemed it okay to go out and have lunch with somebody who was a former ANC MP. Incidentally, an individual who also didn't cover himself in glory. And then we've had issues around Lindiwe Zulu, issues around Mameloko Kubai and the Tourism Fund and so on. We've had social grants, people queuing, and then of course, the death of Collins Corsa, which I think was a real turning point in this lockdown. The President has to act against these individuals. Initially, he acted against Stella Ndabeni-Abrams, but after 2 months, seamlessly, she's back and all is well. And I think that this sets an unhealthy precedent. There has to be some sort of leadership from the top with regard to these things. And what we've seen, Sally, is with regard to so this mixed bag of cabinet, some strong characters, and Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma and her relentless ban on tobacco, and Ibrahim Patel confused. I mean, there are many people very angry at him still about the clothing regulations. And then you have the President sort of seeming to be stuck in the middle. He has to sort of take control of the situation, I think. He is ponderous, some might call it weak. But we really do need that leadership that we had back in March. But all it says to us, Sally, is what we already know, that this is an ANC which is running South Africa via this cabinet, and it is weak, it's fractious, it's divided, it's made up of some good people and other thorough incompetence and corrupt individuals. And that is laid bare in the President's cabinet.
And do you think that is part of the reason why we see sometimes mixed messages, changed messages? I mean, if you think about the tobacco ban, the President announced it would be unbanned, and then it was rebanned. Even the confusion yesterday around this alcohol tweet saying that the ban would be in effect for the whole of the lockdown. Then we're told, no, that was a mistake. Then it seems there was a working document where it actually does say it's meant to be for the whole of the lockdown. The industry is in a bit of a panic, wondering what they're going to do. You know, it's quite clear to see that indecision, miscommunication even, can have a really serious impact on the bottom line. Do you again say that's all due to a lack of leadership? Do you think there's an opportunity tonight for the President to speak clearly on certain things like tobacco and alcohol, maybe saying when it's going to end? What do you think he's going to say tonight on those issues?
Well, Sally, we've reached a point where we actually don't know. And we talk about this risk-adjusted strategy, but it really does seem as if, apart from, we've got the curfew, we've got a tobacco ban, alcohol ban, and then there's sort of strange rules around tourism, business-only hotel use. But it does seem as if a lot of that has kind of been abandoned, and we are becoming quite ad hoc. So tonight, I'd like to see the President addressing some of these issues. So, for example, this mix-up in communication. You can't have a mix-up in communication like that, not when it's affecting people's livelihoods. Having said that, of course, Sally, no government has dealt with this pandemic perfectly, and at a time of national crisis, we don't ask our government to be perfect, but we ask them to do the next right thing and to rectify the wrongs as soon as possible. But it does also seem as if there is some chaotic movement going on within the communications section within the presidency, and I think the latest allegations against Kusela Diko's husband hasn't really helped the situation, and so that leaves a kind of sour taste. So tonight he's got to come out on issues of education. The question around the opening of schools, these are difficult questions, but on again, off again press conference, it just looks like this government is ham-fisted and it's not really got a handle on things. So the president's got to come out, and we seem to ask this every time, and be clear about what he wants to say, and there must be no backtracking. And also, I think on the ongoing tobacco ban, you know, there needs to be the rationale and the logic, because the moment you have unreason introduced into the debate, it undermines the cause, and so we must be careful of that. It really is in our hands now, though, and I do think also government missed a beat on communication, and also on the way in which citizens are going to work with citizens to deal with this pandemic, and that hasn't really happened effectively.
Yeah, as you say, thank you very much, Judith. It is in our hands. Judith February, Senior Research Associate and Governance Specialist at the Institute for Security Studies.